Ben Whitehair. I am the Executive Vice President of SAG-AFTRA, and I hope you enjoyed Aida Rodriguez's amazing stand-up comedy special, Fighting Words, as much as I did. Her comedy is poignant, it's insightful, it's hilarious, and it is no wonder that she made history in 2020 as the first Latina to appear in 2 comedy specials airing the same month on both HBO and Showtime. Not a surprise, but no less impressive. She pretty much bared her soul, so I will keep my intro short and just say how truly happy we are to have such a talented stand-up comedian, writer, producer, and actor like Aida with us tonight. Thank you for joining us, Aida.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So grateful to have you. For our special Q&A with Aida, we will be moderated by SAG and Oscar Award winner Ariana DeBose, no big deal, for what is sure to be a provocative, poignant, and incredibly entertaining conversation, not to set the bar too high. We all saw DeBose dazzle the world last year in her groundbreaking performance in Steven Spielberg's reimagined West Side Story, and the Tony-nominated dancer and singer is equally and importantly as dedicated to her off-screen activism, working to secure protections for homeless youth, women's reproductive rights, and the LGBTQI community. Together, these 2 multi-talented performers are going to inspire and enlighten us. And before we dive in, a note of thanks to everyone who submitted questions in advance. We will get through as many of those as we can tonight. So without any further ado, let me turn it over to these incredible human beings. It is my pleasure to introduce Aida Rodriguez and Ariana DeBose. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Happy Pride.
Yes, thank you. Happy Pride. That's right. This is exciting. Mommy, we're here. We're doing a thing. I'm an idiot. Just welcome. Welcome to town. I am so thrilled to be here to celebrate you. I've been madly in love with you for the longest time. Maybe you don't know that. But you have been just such an inspiration to me. You made space for me. You supported me through the entire award season. Even before that, you gave me access to my culture. You mean so much to me and so many people. So I'm really glad that we get this opportunity to celebrate you and your work in Fighting Words. And it's not just Fighting Words. It's you. We're celebrating you. Because you are.
I need you to stop.
She's like, I'm welling up, ladies and gents. I'm waiting, humans of the world. No, but it's all true. It really is. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. I'm gonna ask you a couple intro questions.
Let's go.
First thing that comes to your mind. First on-camera experience.
First on-camera experience. Wow, I just told the story the other day and I forgot about it. Now I can't think of what it is. I have long COVID brain.
Okay.
But first on-camera experience as a stand-up comedian was actually pretty brutal for me because I had never been on television before doing stand-up. So I haven't told the story, and I did this story. I did this show. Kevin Hart was hosting this show called One Mic Stand, and gave me all the support in the world. And I remember going up these stairs to do my first set ever on national television. And this woman yells out in the audience and everyone can hear her, "Who does this B think she is?" And I froze. I had a pretty mediocre set. I didn't know people could yell out stuff. I didn't realize, this is like a comedy show on camera. And I just remember thinking to myself, that will never happen to me again. And Kevin Hart had my back because he went back on stage after I got off and he let that woman have it. But it was a very interesting experience doing stand-up as opposed to, being an actor and performing. That was my first on-camera comedy experience.
That's interesting because the aspect of this type of performance art, it is live, but you're not really playing a character. Like you're you telling jokes. So that's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
I would imagine. When I do cabaret, I get up and I'm like a version of myself. but you are speaking as Ida, you know,
Yeah.
like that's a wow. Wow, thank you for that perspective.
Yeah, it's pretty cathartic, you know?
It is, well, yeah. It's interesting. I found comedy to be incredibly cathartic, and I think that's possibly what I like in particular about fighting words. But what I like about you as a comedian is that you create art with accountability.
Yes.
Like, and not all comedians take that standpoint, but I really felt that from you in fighting words, especially because well, we're just jumping right on in. I love this for us. And this is also something that a SAG-AFTRA member pointed out in their questions, that you poke fun at both liberal and woke audiences to keep that balance. Now, that's a tricky thing to do, to walk that particular line. How do you accomplish that?
You know what I think about the people who are in my orbit, like I have a brother whose views are very different than mine. His experiences are very different than mine. And I just think that we've gotten so caught up in discounting other people's experiences because they don't look like ours, that you know, I just think about stuff like that. I think as a comedian, being a student of George Carlin, who's one of my favorite comedians and teachers, who continues to teach from the beyond, there is a lot of stuff that needs to be said. People are in a lot of pain. We have this collective trauma that we've been dealing with for the last few years, and then some. Why would I sit down and take aim at the most vulnerable people on the planet? What do I gain? And even though my counterparts, many of them will say, well, you know, they have the loudest voices. People are listening to them. Gay people run everything, this, that, and the other. Just because people have the loudest voices doesn't mean they have power. That just means they're screaming and begging for people to see them. You know, people of color, Black people have been begging to be seen, and we've heard their voices. That doesn't mean that they have power. And so what I set out to do is just tell the stories of all the people. And when it comes to people picking sides, because we're now devoid of nuance, I mean, I know, you know, one conservative that's better than 10 liberals I know, because they're willing to be accountable for who they are and not just mouthing talking points that, you know, that people think are popular. I really honor the human experience, all of them. And I want to be connected to as many of them as I can.
Well, our humanity is what we have, you know? I really love that about you, because it's like, we're not always going to agree, but that doesn't mean that we should invalidate each other's lived experiences. We talked a lot about that during award season. I remember I called you one day and I was like, yo, we still do it to each other. Like, Latinos do it to other Latinos all the time, and it's subtle, but it's aggressive.
Yeah, and it's painful.
So I just love how honest you are about it, and you feel that honesty in this special. I feel. I also wanted to ask you just overall about where the inspiration for fighting words came from, because I feel like each one of your specials, like, they're derived from a specific place. What makes fighting words different from other specials for me is that you do have the component of very personal documentary footage that we see, and we watch you go on this journey with your family, but it's a large component of your comedy set as well. Is that where some of that inspiration came from?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about, my set was completely different. Like, I booked this special with HBO Max before COVID happened, and I was preparing something very different. And then when COVID hit, and I started looking at how it was the great equalizer, because it didn't matter how rich you are, if you were white, you were poor, you were Black, you were queer. It made us all, for one moment in time, really understand how vulnerable and how insignificant we can all be, no matter how important we think we are, because none of us are exempt from the realities of life. And so I just decided that I wanted to speak to that pain. I wanted to speak to George Floyd and what was happening in that world. I wanted to speak to the environment and climate change, and how how relieved the planet was that we were inside, because we were so caught up with the virus, not realizing how much of a virus we really are. And I just really wanted to release us, you know, and I wanted people to understand that all of us are just human beings on this planet. And at any given moment, any natural way, Mother Earth can say, I'm taking 500 of you guys. It's time for you guys to graduate. And you have no power over that. And so I just started writing to that. And I wanted to share, you know, I wanted people to understand and to know that I heard and I saw them. And I also wanted people to know, because of what was happening with comedy and people in this alleged cancel culture and woke culture, I really wanted people to understand how some of us mind our jokes, that a lot of our jokes come from our personal experiences and pain. And though I thought over and over again about showing that part of my family and my father, I wanted to release a lot of people, not just women whose fathers are not in their lives, all human beings who have a missing parent or have had a parent skip out on a part of their life, to know that they were okay and that they were not alone. I wanted people to release some people from that shame, because I in turn, you know, what healed a little bit and released myself from some of that shame, knowing that I had a community of people who knew what I was going through.
Oh, I love that. I know, I mean, I can tell you gave me an opportunity for healing, because I have a very similar lived experience to your own. And it's not every day that story gets told, and not as authentically and honestly in the way that you and your team were able to do that. So thank you for that. I never got to actually tell you that. Thank you for that.
Okay. I'm too busy crying on your voicemail.
I love that. I got this gorgeous voicemail from Ida, Oscar night, and I've saved it, and it's never going away. I hope you know that. It brings me joy, and on days when I'm down. Oh, I love that. What was I going to ask you? See, I'm all caught up in my own feelings now. Speaking of your family, I wanted to ask you about your children, because you get to see your beautiful kids in the context of the end of the special. And I love how, you know, you took them along the ride in your visit to Puerto Rico and to the DR, and you asked your daughter, like, do you see yourself here? And she's like, I'm not really sure. But I love that you made the space for them to feel their own feelings. And I was just wondering if they were, how they felt about the special and the experience as a whole, looking back on it now, because this all took place during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, we went there during the pandemic. People were in the Dominican Republic, people were in curfew. That was another reason why it was important for me to go there and to go to Puerto Rico with my children. First, I want to say that it was very important for me to go there because a lot of my comedy is rooted in my experience as a Dominican, as a Puerto Rican, as a Latina woman, you know, and as a woman who claims her Afro-Indigenous, you know, roots. It was really important for me to make sure that people who I talk about capitalized on the experience. So I went to the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico and hired local crew members and Afro-Latinos behind, you know, to do sound, and a Black woman did my makeup in the Dominican Republic. It was important for me to go give back to the community that I constantly talk about. They should be capitalizing on it as well. My children, who, because of someone like you, can see a reflection of themselves in media, who have a very different experience than my Afro-Latinidad, because they have a Black American parent, and they also belong to us. They belong to us.
And they do.
You belong to us, like I always tell you. So it was very important for me, for them to go back to the homelands and to see what the people actually look like, because media can be so deceiving with who we are and what we like. We're not a monolith, which has become so cliche to say, but I wanted other people to see, along with my children, to see themselves in our countries and see who we are in our complete spectrum, not just, this one version of us that we often used to see in media, which is changing now, thankfully. But it's very important for me and my gospel and what I speak on, that people see those. And my kids were at the front, at the top of the list for me. If I needed them to feel seen, heard, and I want them to feel connected to their roots.
That's amazing. It was really beautiful thing to behold. And I love that you walk the walk, you talk the talk, because not every artist does that.
Thank you.
And for all the folks who don't know the queen sitting behind Aida right now, that is our queen, Celia Cruz.
Yes.
With the rollers. Like,
that's our.
We are, because she's ours. We love her.
Yeah.
Azúcar. Good. Just, for the spirit. Let's see, where shall we go next? You talked about mentorship. You mentioned it earlier. Your greatest mentors in this business, specifically because you're a woman in comedy. I love to hear about your greatest mentors. I've heard that you've found like great support within your comedian community. Wow, say that 5 times fast. Didn't go well. So cute. Yeah, wax poetic about that. Talk to me about what it is to be a woman in the comedy atmosphere and who your greatest inspirations and supporters have been.
I really always want to make sure that I am thoughtful about when I talk about these things, right? Because I remember watching the movie with Charlize Theron in it, The Roan, when she was in the mines, and she was a woman, North Country. Yeah. And I had a joke about how comedy felt like I was in North Country, in the North Country of comedy.
Okay.
Because there are women who show up, and queer people and trans people who show up every day for work and have to feel a level of pressure that a male doesn't feel. And so
right.
as that is real in comedy, I still want to be thoughtful about the people who were like our essential workers who have been essential the whole time. And I don't want to just sit here and say, oh, life for me is so hard as I get to go out and tell jokes for a living, but it can be rough sometimes. And it always hasn't been as sweet as it is as having an HBO Max special. There were times where I was on the road and my motel that had outside access, outside entry access was next to a truck stop. I've had, people trying to knock my door down and get in my rooms. Just the realities that a lot of people don't really know about. It has been a journey, and it is still a journey. I'm not 25, I'm a woman, I'm a brown woman, and I don't speak about the popular things that a lot of people talk about. I try to go and delve into what's complicated and confrontational and confusing. And it's not often received by someone who looks like me, because I get penalized for doing what George Carlin did so
easily,
artistically and perfectly and easily.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. I'm really going after the things that I want to tackle humanity in a way that holds us accountable, but also creates a path for us to find some sort of unity and peace, because nobody's going anywhere, right? Like there's no mass exodus of any group, and we have to figure out a way to live together. So, it can be hard. And because I don't do what's easy, I have a lot of sisters in comedy who will say, girl, just go ahead and talk about, makeup, or it's hard. Like, why do you want to carry this burden, and they acknowledge that I do choose to do sometimes what's uncomfortable and hard. And that adds a layer of difficulty for me as a woman, because I'm not providing people with the easy thing that they have to weaponize against me, which it doesn't matter what a woman talks about in comedy, she's always wrong. But it's been quite the journey, but I'm so thankful for it. There's not an audience that I can't play for. I don't have a favorite audience. When people say, well, do you do Latino rooms? Or I do rooms and everybody comes to see me. And And it feels great to be able to offer a voice to something that wants to create something better. Everybody, not everybody, but so many people are trying to burn things down. And for me, I rather fix them. I rather fix
Yep.
them, you know?
Rather fix them. Also, we don't have anything to replace them with. You're gonna burn it down. What are we replacing them with yet? There's no template.
Facts.
So let's fix it. That's why I love you.
Ditto.
Oh, bless. You said so many poignant things. God, I really am in awe of your journey. And it's the road less traveled. It is. And I do think women in this industry, no matter what facet of the industry we are in, we don't get brownie points for traveling the road less traveled. But it's the more rewarding road. Speaking for myself, like my path has felt that way, but I wouldn't trade it either.
Yeah.
I think you learned some of the most valuable lessons. You meet people that will change your life in big and small ways, but also like not only do they change your life, but you change theirs. Yeah. And it's this give and take that you didn't even realize was possible. It's a beautiful thing. It's why I'm glad to have opportunities like this to shine light on journeys like yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Like, don't thank me. This needed to happen a very long time ago, my queen, because you're a queen. Let's not cry. Let's not cry. It's fine. Everybody's happy. Okay, we talked about women in comedy. Where do we want to go next?
And you know what, I just wanted to say something really quickly about the women in comedy. There are a lot of women in comedy who are not just stand-up comedians. There are bookers and promoters and producers who never get to see or hear about them, because you think about comedy, you think about the male experience. And I just want to make sure that I acknowledge those women who show up and say, I'm here and I'm going to create a way, because there are a lot of women behind the scenes in comedy that you never really hear about. And I'm really thankful for a lot of those women. It was a woman who put me on television for the very first time, a woman named Monica Boyd, who put me on TV to do stand-up for the very first time. So I'm just I just want to make sure that the journey is tough for all of us, not just the ones that you see, but the ones who you don't get to see.
Right. Well, thank you, Monica Boyd. Shout out, Monica Boyd. Seriously. I thank you for pointing that out. I don't think that's something we don't talk about either. It's not just the faces you see, it's the faces you don't. Casting directors, bookers, producers, all that. Yeah, this has nothing to do with anything. But when I was hosting Saturday Night Live, I was shocked to see how many women were all in that building. I don't know, in my brain, as like, I was like, yes, it's sketch comedy, but like, there's going to be men everywhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, some great women.
Incredible women, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And yeah, we're everywhere because we're great. We're getting it done. That's what it is. What do you want, going back to fighting words? And we've talked a little bit about this, but there's so many themes within it. But in a perfect world, what do you hope viewers are really taking away from this? I have a feeling you opened many hearts and many minds, but like, what was your intention there?
I wanted people to walk away thinking. A lot of comedians love to say, oh, I'm the funniest person. I wanted people to walk away and think about how toxic we can be to our land and Mother Earth and the great earth that we get to be, that we, thankful to Indigenous people who allow us to be on their land everywhere we go. I wanted people to think about, the reality of just demonizing people because they don't sound like us, that sometimes that we think, in our own self-righteousness and indignance, that we think we're doing the right thing because we have the right button on, or we belong to the right cause, or we donate money to a certain organization, that is what activism is about. And I wanted people to just to really hold a mirror up to themselves and say, it's okay that I'm imperfect. What matters is that I'm trying. Because I just think we just got into these culture wars, and none of them are good for us. The only groups that these culture wars are good for are the ones who are capitalizing off of them by continuously keeping us at war. And so I wanted to just make sure that everybody understood that none of us are perfect. We're all imperfect. And I went from, you know, because I write in a way where my special was, I talked about society, I talked about relationships, I talked about family, and then I talked about myself. And I hold myself just as accountable as I hold anybody else. So I really wanted people to think, you know, I am everything I am because my tribe loved me, my grandmother. Everything that I was told I couldn't do in comedy, I've done in spite of. You know, I was told I would never have an hour special. You know, people will be like, Nina will never give you a special. This will never happen. This will never happen. And Susanna Mackles came along and gave me a special and said, I see you. You know, it's just, I just really was, I woke up that morning and I realized my daughter cried, my son cried, and they were like, everything they said you weren't going to do, you're doing it. And here we are right now in this moment. And, you know, for all of the people who don't think that a woman that's over 40, who's brown, should have a microphone in her hand, there were some key people who believed that she did. And I just wanted people to see that that special is just the evidence of a whole bunch of dreams realized, and an entire tribe, not just me, the sacrifices that were made by my entire family, my 2 kids who have been by my side throughout the whole thing. And I just wanted it to be inspiring above all.
Above all things, it is. It really is. And so many people can see themselves in this special as part of what makes it important and beautiful work. You allow people to be seen as they are, and you do hold yourself accountable. As an audience member, I'm like, that's what makes her special. You stand out amongst your brethren, or just, you know what I mean? Because of that, because you hold yourself accountable, and because you have the ability to see both sides of a coin. There aren't many people in the game doing that. And so I thank you for your perspective, because it's really important. Really quickly, because I found it so fascinating and also very honest and genuine how you touched on this in the context of your special. You talk about homelessness. And I was like, that's the real. Now, I personally would have never experienced homelessness to the same degree that you have in your journey. I rode the subway for 24 hours and it scared the living shit out of me. But I got resourceful and I figured it out. And, you know, that's part of why I advocate for homeless youth. But there are just these realities that you speak so honestly about because you've lived them.
Yeah.
Like,
you know,
that is, yes, please.
No, I just wanted to give a voice to those things. You know, I lived in a Best Western with my children. My daughter missed the Halloween that she was looking forward to because she got sick, and she laughs because every Halloween I cry about it, because I was like, you were sick because you were in this hotel and I was poor and I was so broke. And you know, and I would tell my kids I should just quit this, and they would be like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go be a lawyer? Like, this is what you were born to do. Like, why would you quit? You can't quit. You've never forsaken us. You know, there are people that we see every day and we ride past them under the freeways. We see them on bus stops. They've created tents. We don't want them in our neighborhood, but we don't want to build facilities for them in our neighborhoods either, because we don't want our property values to go down. Those are human beings. Those are somebody. And I just feel like anytime I have that I have the microphone, I want to bring, you know, I want people to understand that those are human beings. And I just want to shine a light on all people who don't have a voice. And I just remember being in a place of despair. I have a new joke as I work on my new set about dealing with my depression and suicide, and how I thought about just killing myself and my 2 kids because I just didn't see any hope. and I didn't want to leave them behind. And I was struggling with this depression and this mental, illness that drove me to a place where I would think about hurting my own kids. And I just said, I know I'm not alone, and I can't keep it to myself, because now that I'm on the other side, there are a bunch of people who are there and I have to release them. And so I want to always talk about those things, and just continue to give a voice and shine a light on the people who, up until a pandemic hit us, we never even acknowledged. I talked to someone at Trader Joe's, because I always speak to everybody everywhere I go, and people think it's performative, but it's just how I was brought up. My grandmother, like I went into an event today and I saw the people who were the servers, and I said, good morning, how is everyone doing? Yeah. It's just who I am, because I remember being those people, and I will never forget that. And so I just think it's important to remember, and whenever you have an opportunity to speak and a lot of people are listening, use a little bit of that time to speak about those who will never get the mic.
You're the realist. Thanks. You are.
I'm trying, but I'm just
no, you're doing more than trying, you're doing. And that's the thing. I know I am personally very grateful that you have the opportunities that you have, and I know they will continue, because you haven't changed. Your circumstances around you have changed for the better, and there are people recognizing your talent, as is everyone here who is listening to this conversation, bearing witness to the genius that you have to offer the industry and to the world. And that's true. It sounds like a large statement. It's not. It's the truth. So keep doing what you're doing. You didn't need to hear that from me, but please keep doing what you're doing. Keep going. Keep going. It's necessary and beautiful work. I know we are approaching the end of our time together, but I have a few more questions, because they are SAG-AFTRA member questions and we cannot leave them out. This question is technically for both of us. Aida and Ariana, you both addressed the topic of colorism in the Latinx community and Afro-Latinidad so beautifully in your own authentically honest ways. Aida, through your comedy, and Ariana, through your performances and interviews, what conversations do we need to be having as a Latinx, Latina, Latinx, etc. community to highlight these issues and experiences, so that we feel like we are all included and that we all belong?
Well, I will say educational conversations, because as I said, a lot of people like to burn things down. If you don't know, you don't know. And unfortunately, there's a miseducation that has been, the gross miseducation that has taken place as a result of white supremacy throughout the world, where white people are not educated, Black people are not educated, and everyone else who is not a person of color. We need to acknowledge the fact that there's an education that's missing, because we can't just expect people to know things if they don't know things. And that respectability politics for me is null and void. I am not going to hold people accountable for their own for their own miseducation. What I hold you accountable is for how you proceed with that, right? And what's in here. I think when it comes to the education of Latinidad, specifically when it comes to art, open doors, create opportunities, let people who are creators, not just talent, but creators, tell stories that are authentic, that resonate. Because when other people tell the stories and the artists just show up and it doesn't land with the community, is because they don't see a reflection of themselves in what is being told, regardless of who's telling it, like who you see. So I think that when we talk about these things, we need to address it from an educational standpoint, because right now everybody is doing this, and that's not helping anybody. That just turns people off and turns them away. I would like to sit down and just really educate people. And I plan to do it through stand-up, through my television and film, stuff, acting and writing and producing and creating opportunities for other people who look like us. It's not the me show all the time. And so I think that it's an education. It starts with education, and it starts with the willingness to learn. Like people who want to learn. There are people who don't know who want to learn, and I'm not going to slam the door in their faces.
Right. I feel the exact same way. The willingness to listen has to be there. And it does, it all starts with education. My mom's an educator, and it's interesting. She's a history teacher, Gina DeBose, and she's shifted how she teaches in her classroom in order to include a more authentic history lesson, because it's not in the books, you know. So sometimes you have to go to outside sources and get creative and think outside the box in order to find ways to actually get our young people to realize that the binary is actually not a thing. The thing that's in the book is not ultimately not the whole story, you know. I think it's very easy to just take what we read and the things that we hear as facts, you know, headlines, the things you find when you're scrolling. Some of those they're not real. You actually have to seek educational resources from sources you can trust. And the hard part is knowing where to go. But if you're willing to sit down and put in the effort and ask the questions, we can get there. At least that was my experience, especially during award season. I met so many members of our community who were actually willing to listen. And the thing was, most people would say, Ariana, we didn't know you were Hispanic. And I was like, nobody ever asked. It was just assumed that I was something. And then when I tried to start talking about it, I was kind of put down for a bit because they're like, that's not possible. I was like, how is it not possible? I'm looking at all these beautiful examples of what it is to be Latina, and I fit in the spectrum of what it, you know. So I just think I co-sign everything you said, and just the willingness to do the work. Part of it is that, and yes, we all have responsibility in this industry, no matter where we are, to especially if we're in positions of power, to create more seats at the table, not just for actors, but for creators. I can't continue to do what I do in the way that I want to do it if I don't have people who look like me writing the words.
That's right.
You know, there's only so much I can do as an actor, but if it's not on the page.
Yeah. And greenlighting the projects, the person that is making a decision about the projects, because they are, you know, because the thing is, like, people are like, oh, this white person just did this show and they didn't know. But, you know, everybody around that person told that person it was a good idea, because they don't have people around that are going to check and say, hey, you may not want to make this person this or say this. But if you don't have that person around you, and so for me, I want to be of assistance. I want to be of service. I want to say, let me help you with this because I want to see it happen, instead of, you know, get out of here, you know, like, let's cancel you on Twitter. It's not conducive to progress. No, it doesn't. The people who be canceled eventually get canceled in life, but we need, you know, we need an education. We do. We do. And I know we are two individuals who are very committed staffs. And that's what's kind of cool, is that along this journey of being in the entertainment industry, I think we are divinely guided to the people who we can really make work and do business with. And I'm very glad to be in your orbit, Aida. Thank you so much for making the time and allowing me to ask you all these questions and pick your brain. And thank you for sharing so much of who you are and how you do what you do with us. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much. And I know it's time to go, but I just wanted to send a shout out and a heartfelt moment to all of the people who are suffering in Texas, the people in Tulsa, the people in Buffalo, and all of the people who are dealing with the reality and the carnage of irresponsible, you know, behaviors with people and weapons and murdering children. So I just want to say that I get to do this, and I'm so privileged and so blessed. And in this moment, my two children, I know exactly where they are. I just want to say that regardless of what's happening, I just want to just put that out into the universe.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I, on behalf of everybody watching in SAG-AFTRA, am so grateful for the two of you. And as a fellow actor and artist, like, I'm both in awe of your, like, the talents and skill and what you do as artists, but I think especially in what we've seen tonight is just how much both of you care and how much of you are using your voice and your platform to lift others up and to share that and to be a space for education. And I think to me, that's why I became an actor in the first place, is to do that. And so it just, on a personal note, it brings me so much joy to see both of you doing that and shining a light and telling the stories that, as we have seen by, you know, the way that the public continues to respond, just that there are so many people out there who have been wanting to hear those stories and to see themselves represented in new ways. And so I'm so grateful that both of you have come and shared that with all of us here. Aida, thank you for your hilarious and thought-provoking special and all of the insight into your creative process and what you're about. And Ariana DeBose for moderating our conversation tonight. As SAG-AFTRA continues our work to secure protections and equity for all of our members, we look forward to bringing you more events like this one that celebrate the incredible rich diversity and wealth of experiences that make up our union and our world. And Aida and Ariana, just again, thank you so much for spending your time with us here this evening. And we look forward to hopefully talking with you again very soon. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We hope everybody has a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Ariana.
I love you. Thanks, Ken.
Bye everyone.